Okay, and I want to play. There's a portion of your interview that I'd like to play.
Absolutely.
You're welcome. You want to stick around and make comments on that too?
I'd like to. Okay. Yes, thank you.
All right, so let me pull that up, and I'm going to start it about the 48 mark.
Yeah.
In the video, and let it go in that one little stream up into the district attorney speaking, because I think that is okay. So, and then your guests that you have had on, do you want to give a little plug for them?
Yeah, they were from a podcast called Skeptic Psychic, and that was Richard and Kimber, their brother and sister. And they had, like I said earlier on in this interview, had just interviewed Joanne not too long ago, and they kindly agreed to hear my side of the different side of the story. And that's my goal right now, is getting myself on other shows that Joanne's been on to give the opposing opinion.
What I like about this particular show is this part. You really describe everything really well. Great overview. And so that's really, again, why I want to play it. And then also the Crossan Hoover confession.
Oh, yes, please. Yeah, that's
wonderful.
crazy.
Okay, so let me make sure I just did this
And
right.
I just want to say, I've interviewed Crossan Hoover for many, many months. He's on the docuseries. I do like Crossy. He has gone through a lot of change. You know, he's 17 in this clip. This is not the Crossy we know right now. And, you know, yeah.
Okay.
I'll let it speak for itself. Well, that wise man did say that. But then when you've got factual court documentation, when you've re-interviewed all the people involved in the crime. So let me just set this up and I'll go back to that. That's a good point. So I'm going to miss bits out here because this is not the docuseries. This is just me, you know, off the top of my head, right? So Mark Richards in 1982 influenced a 17-year-old called Crossan Hoover and Andrew Campbell to take part in the murder of his friend Richard Baldwin. Okay, Mark and Richard were good friends. Mr. Baldwin had been at Mark's wedding. They kicked around, you know, as friends. They knew each other, right? I mean, I mean, Mr. Baldwin, I wouldn't say had a best friend, but Mark was a friend. Okay, and Mark was running a construction business. Now, Kerry and Joanne will say the construction business was successful. He had money tucked away and all that kind of stuff, because she mentioned it on your show, right? No, it was not successful at all. We've interviewed Mark's brother-in-law, Joe. Joe has stated, and it's his testimony, and it's the same testimony in the court case, right? That obviously Mark stole Joe's contracting license. And, you know, Joe would get phone calls at some point in time to say, you know, you've done a terrible job. You know, whatever the issue was with the job, you know, they wanted their money back. So he actually stole his brother's contracting license. Mark Richards was involved in a car insurance fraud involving reporting the theft of lost cars back in the, I want to say 1973. And if I'm off with years here, we're creating a master timeline, because Joanne's never seen the master timeline of what Mark says to compare to what really happened, you know, in reality. And at the time of that court case, his lawyer was a guy called Carl Shapiro. Carl Shapiro would later be his lawyer in 1982 for his murder case, along with another lawyer as well. So Carl Shapiro got him off that case, you know, the charges. But we actually met and traced down Mike Peck, which was someone who did do some time for that insurance fraud, and he was Mark's good friend, and he was part of that insurance ring. There are other people that we're going to try to speak to for that insurance ring, but you know, Mike's testimony was pretty damning, to be honest. I mean, he felt that Mark should have gone down. He took the hit for it, and he trusted Mark that he wasn't going to, you know, rat on him, basically, and he did, which, you know, this happens all the time. But this is the early career of Mark as well. And Mark was always made to feel very special by his mother. Mark was someone who well, he was, his friends talk about him in the interviews that we've done, that, you know, Mark was the odd one out, in a sense, the goofy one a little bit as well. But there's more to it than that, right? I'm just going to paraphrase here, right? So in 1982, he's got a failing contracting business. He's taken out 2 mortgages against his home. People saw the degradation of Mark mentally. People that knew him back in the day, even his neighbors that have been interviewed by us, well, not by us, shall I say, we've got some third-party content, because there was, back in the day, maybe 10, 15 years ago, there was a student project where these students covered the murder case, because they were family members knew Richard Baldwin back in the day, and for their film project at I think it was high school, they actually interviewed some of the legacy people in this case that are no longer with us, and they've signed over that footage, which is wonderful. And you hear the next door neighbor saying, look, we saw the mental degradation of Mark Richards at this time. He was not acting right. Many people have said that to us in the interviews that we've done with them. We've done over 23 people. Interviewed over 23 people, including Russ Blum, who was his friend back in the day, who in 1977 they set up to film, to make a film. Mark, Joanne talks about Mark being a filmmaker. It was Russ Blum who was the filmmaker. Russ Blum was about Mark being a filmmaker. It was Russ Blum who was the filmmaker. Russ Blum was the filmmaker, not Mark Richards, right? And his interviews are extensive, and he goes into so much detail about the projects, including something called Future School, which they set up as well. We've actually got the incorporated articles for the non-for-profit Future School that they set up. It shows Mark witnessing his signature, in front of the whoever this is, the account, the notary, I guess it is. And, we've got so many ways to show that he was on planet, right? He was not off planet. Absolutely not. And, Mark's, ex-wife Karen, which Joanne will say, you cannot trust these people, they knew nothing about his time in the secret space program. Well, that's just tell me that's just give me something, say something to me that's how can that be shared reality, that you don't know what your husband's doing? She knew what her husband was doing.
Like I said, even when we're I've talked with a couple of military wives, they know that their husband is on board ship or in the military. They just, because of the classifications, they don't know where their husband. My husband's in the military. Okay, well,
Yeah. Well, what we've got here as well is, obviously he's saying that he was in the military, and I'm sorry if I get some of this wrong, but at the age of 13. Now, what would you say to that? Age 13 in the military. Is there, as you maybe?
There's only one recorded person during World War II being age 13. Well, there's Civil War. There's actually a little boy who was 8. But he basically, it's kind of a little bit of an odd thing. I mean, the little 8-year-old was a drummer boy. The 15-year-old boy had lied on his paperwork saying, yes, I'm 18 years old. So,
well, we're also going to put some of Mark's timeline on the screen as well. We'll share that, and maybe we can go into some sort of order. But just to talk about what this is about, in its context, because there's so much to this. In 1982, Crossan Hoover was hired by Mark. 17-year-old Crossy was hired by Mark to work on his contracting company to do the jobs they were doing, and so was Andrew Campbell. Previously to Andrew Campbell, there was a guy called Willie Robes. And Willie Robes was the first person that was asked by Mark to murder his friend Richard Baldwin. Willie didn't want nothing to do with it, and unfortunately, he hired, or shall I say, introduced Crossan Hoover to Mark, because he knew that, he just wanted out of Pendragon, right? Which was the cult that Mark had set up, and we'll get into Pendragon in just a moment. And Willie actually joined the Navy at the time. And he got out that way. Now, Crossan Hoover actually went down with Willie to join the Navy, I believe, and he wasn't allowed to join because he didn't pass the test at the time, whatever practical, theoretical test it was. Do you know what I mean? He just was. He wasn't. He wasn't. He had learning difficulties. Crossy did. what Mark actually did was play on Cross's weaknesses, how he hated faggots, as he called them, pedophiles, and scum of the earth. He would get into Cross's mind, and because I've interviewed Crossy for 3 months, who's Mark's crime partner now, you'd call it. He's in an opposing prison. He got 25 to life, his sentence was, and he's still not got out now because I don't feel he's been ready, but he might be getting there, right? And in that 3-month, testimony over recorded lines, his testimony never changed from the day that he was arrested at 17 in 1982. So what happened was there were Pendragon meetings, and we believe that these meetings were ways to just make sure that he got the most susceptible, kids that would actually, maybe be ones that he could manipulate. And it wasn't so much Andrew, it was Crossy that was the real one that was able to be manipulated. And on July 6, 1982, Mark was doing a job at Mr. Baldwin's house. And there was a chap there called Tom Mills who was with his stepchild at the time. And Tom Mills placed Crossan Hoover, Andrew Campbell at the Mr. Baldwin's apartment. That all came out in court. And skipping through a few things here, right, which will come out in the docuseries, or maybe we'll talk about. They went for lunch, and it was placed upon the two boys then that this is it. This is the day. We're doing this after lunch. Dick is going to die. Dick is a pedophile, Dick is, well, he had actually, said a lot of bad things about Dick leading up to the murder, just to get, to coax them in, and then the deal was made that they would be paid for the deed. He would split the assets of Mr. Baldwin with the boys, and they would get the guns that they needed to start their cult, which would be the succession of, or the takeover of Marin County at the time. He was planning to take over Marin County. Now, Joanne denies all that, and of course Mark denies it, but in the 1982 court trial, where over 21,000 pieces of evidence plus were put into the trial, maybe not all that they collected that amount plus, but that there was maybe not all that amount that actually was shown to the jurors, because there was just so much, right? That was part of the plan, but obviously that plan was just a load of nonsense, because it was really just to get his to get rid of Dick. And whether Dick had, and I called Richard Baldwin Dick because that was his name at the time, that's short, whether Dick was had pissed Mark off to the point where you don't piss him off, you're dead if you get to that level. Do you know what I mean? Mark's so vindictive that whatever argument that they had, he was dead, right? But on the front of it, he's having a great time pretending to do his work on the Dick's property on that day. So when they get back from lunch, Tom was leaving. Then it was the three of them, and they got Mr. Baldwin to take them down to Mr. Baldwin's classic car restoration shop by Crossy asking to want to see some of Mr. Baldwin's classic cars. Okay, so there's anything just from that point that you want to ask, please do.
All right. My question was that we're talking about this big cult, which you said was the Pendragon. Whenever I think of Pendragon, I think of Uther, the father of Arthur, the king of the Britons. I mean, even King Arthur did not consider himself a Pendragon. It was his father's name, but he was up until he became king, he rarely used the name Pendragon. It was usually Arthur, of Britain, that sort of thing. It was later historians that actually compared him to the.
Well, just to let you know, Mark was. We're going to get into Pendragon in the docuseries, but Mark was obsessed with Camelot, King Arthur. He was obsessed with it, and even when we went to the next door neighbor's garden of Mark's current old house, where Joanne was before she went to Oregon, the neighbors showed us some of Mark's old castles. One was in their house, and then one we could see from a distance because the guy knew where it was in the garden, just in the back of the garden, so he pointed to it. And it was crazy to see, and he had a room that his mum had made as well, called Tiny Town, which was a a sort of, I guess like a Camelot themed room. Do you know what I mean? So this was something that he was obsessed with. He loved, the whole Camelot thing, which is kind of, strange.
Well, I've met several people who claimed themselves to be Merlin.
Oh, don't they all? Right?
Yes.
We're all Merlin. Yeah, we're all aspects
Yeah.
of that soul. Yeah, I know. Who knows, right? Who knows? And he certainly thought so as well. I mean, this is well, I'll just show you. This is volume 1 of one of the books he was writing at the time. There was 7 volumes of this that the police took away. This is Imperial Marine Book 1, which Joanne's published. And there was much more than that. And in the other volumes, it talked about the takeover of Marin County. It just didn't say it in here. Whether she releases the other 7 books, I doubt it. I mean, I'm not sure how much of a bestseller the first was, right?
Now, the other also question I would possibly ask, and now it's just because Joanne did bring it up, the ET side of this murder story, I mean, that is one of the most compelling things about that, the fact of, oh, yeah, well, he was actually doing this. Oh, wait a minute. He was doing this all because he had the top secret clearance and he was off doing space things.
Yep. Well, and Andrew's testimony and many other testimonies, he was there. He was there. What Joanne's been told by Mark is that, Andrew's a CIA, or maybe she would term it New World Order, has New World Order connections in the family. So does Crossy. I mean, what fucking nonsense, right? Excuse my French, and it's supposed to be PG, but when you meet these people, New World what would they? That's what they would say. It took ages to track Andrew down. Even to this day, he's affected by what he did. When people find out locally what he did, or friends find out, somehow it just destroys the life that he's built up. He got away with it, with giving state testimony. So they take Mr. Baldwin. So Andrew stays at the house. His orders are to ransack the house. Crossy and Mark head in the truck of, I guess, Mark's truck maybe, to the garage. And then the murder takes place there with Mark standing in the corner, or let's just say 6 foot away, giving the signal to Crossy. And then Crossy attacks him with a baseball bat. Baldwin's last mumbling words, were, why are you having this done, Mark? Why? And then obviously Crossy was handed a screwdriver by Mark, and then Crossy stabbed him to death numerous times. And that was the sad, tragic ending of Mr. Baldwin. And the pain that he must have gone through with those stabbing and the bloody bat and everything else that Crossy don't remember, because he was just out of his bloody mind when he was doing it, right? And when they came back, so they wrapped the body up there, and they came back and to the house, and Andrew came to the front door, something like that, and and they said, "Is it done?" And and just Mark said it was bloody disgusting, and God knows what state they were in blood-wise, but they'd clean a lot of it off, but I'm sure there's splatter on them. Crossy lost the plot at that point at the house. He's just on a bike, just riding outside, just like a child, because he's separating reality at that point. So Mark is shown by Andrew everything that they found at the house, including marijuana, guns of Mr. Baldwin, and cash. Then that day they go and buy a boat. Mark is there. That's one of the witnesses is the boat buyer. Mark, Andrew, and Crossy are there buying the boat. That night they take, that even late evening, they take the boat to the garage, lower Mr. Baldwin's body on the boat. Then they go to the marina. At the marina, the security guard identifies them all, because the security guard at night sees them all there, asks what they're doing. Now, they all had guns at that moment. And at that moment, I think that had something gone wrong, that man would have lost his life as well. We've just been another one added to the boat, right? But he lets them proceed, and they put some money through the door, which was money to be given to have the boat there. Say that they're going to go out fishing, and they then trying to dispose of the body. When they first tried to dispose of the body, they couldn't get it to sink. Eventually, they tied an outboard motor to the body, but as the retired deputy Edward Barbarian has said, the chain was too long. And as the tides changed and as the gases in the body expanded, eventually a week later or somewhere around that time, the body floated up. So for a Navy captain to make such a trash job, a trash job of disposing of the body, it doesn't make any sense. It's not true. And at the time when they were disposing of the body, Andrew and Mark in the end didn't want nothing to do with it when they were banging the body with the oars and stuff to try to get it to go down. It was Crossan then that said, I'm going to take care of this. You guys don't want to do it they didn't want to do it really because it was so grotesque, you know what I mean? That Crossan took care of it in the end. And I guess they gave him some ideas with an outboard motor, but it wasn't, to them, it was their detriment, because if the body had not floated up, obviously, it would have been more difficult to have, for the court to have placed them where they did with the murder. So there's many factors that place them at the murder. Another factor was on the day that they were arrested, Mark, Andrew, and Campbell knew that the body had popped up, and Crossan just felt intuitively that this is it, they're done, right? He told me on the phone he could just feel it, right, and something was going to happen that day. So they had a lot of Mr. Baldwin's property and items from the murder at the house. The duct tape that they wrapped the body up with, tied the body up with, coaxial cable, all able to be linked, because of properties of the duct tape as well. It was all forensically linked, right? And that was part of the damning evidence as well. Was obviously, as they're pulling out of the driveway, this is like a week later, with the boat behind them, and they go, in the truck. Maybe the boat was behind them, right? And they're going to the dump to get rid of Baldwin's safe, pink slips, because obviously they took the safe as well, Baldwin's safe and everything else. And of course, Mark took no responsibility. Said that Crossan just brought it to the house. Do you know what I mean? Of course he never. And actually, it was Mark that drilled the safe, and it was Keith Andrews that confirmed that in the court testimony, because he was there when they had just drilled it, and it was Mark said that we had just drilled it, of course. So that also, connection with the items in the back of the car was another connection to tie it all down, right? And on top of that, then Mark had taken Mr. Baldwin's credit card and cards and opened up credit accounts to various different establishments across the San Francisco Bay Area, like TVs, hi-fis and stuff. And in some shops he went to take out credit, but they were going to install it, so he had to say no. And those people were brought into the court case as well, because that identified that they, at least Andrew and Crossan, Andrew and Mark were present, at the buying of that as well. Mark's police interrogation, one of the only interrogations he had in 1982, the day of being captured, the day of actually, a funny story of him being captured is that he actually leapt out the car as they were being chased by the cops. And Crossan then had to grab the steering wheel. It's like a film, do you know what I mean? To be able to drive the car, and then pulled over. But yes, in his 1982 police interview, he was scared. He was asking for the cops not to leave. He changed his story. He admitted that he in the end that he knew that these boys had done something. Of course, Cross is in the other room singing like a bloody bird, telling them that he murdered him. And because I've got the original 1982 police tapes of Crossan at that 17-year-old crying his eyes out, telling them what he did.
I lost affection for everything in the fucking world in no time flat, because I didn't feel anybody was fucking liking me. People in Jacks, they're making me sick. I want to fight Pete every day. Every time I come home, I give him a sassy attitude. All I want to do is fight now. My mind's set on a fucking death course. I'm getting mean on the inside. I'm getting fucking mean. It's unbelievable. I'm getting fucking meaner than hell. This is bullshit. If I you lock me up with Mark. Just lock me up with Mark.
I'm not gonna lock it.
You want to see another murder? Lock me up with that fucking clown.
Why don't you hold his hand?
Rossi, is this the guy that you were working for?
Yes, Ma. And he just wanted me. I wanted so much fucking money. I wanted love. It's unbelievable. I wanted everything. That's why I tried. Because I wanted to make it for myself. Like everybody else does. I wanted to make it for myself. And when you left me here, I thought to myself, why can't I make it like every other fucking person makes it?
You were making it. You were so happy 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, but then when more money came into my fucking eyesight, I fucking snapped.
This guy is about 26 years old.
29, 30, something like that. 30. 30, just had a birthday. He's sick, Mom.
What kind of a
And
mind?
remember when I told you back when you guys fucking thought I was nuts when I told you about Marin County? Remember that? Remember when I told you, oh, Marin County's gonna fucking go into one of these fucking helter-skelter, but nobody would listen to me. Nobody would listen to me. They all thought I was just fucking going off the wall. He's fucking going nuts. He's going nuts. My little sister freaked out with me. Freaked out on me, and I fucking drove me nuts. Because I didn't think she fucking cared about me anymore.